Very good afternoon, sir, Dr.
Good
Girishwar Mishra.
afternoon. Yeah.
Welcome, sir, on behalf of National Academy of Agriculture Sciences and on my own behalf as course coordinator. I welcome you, sir, to this pedagogical training program organized by NAS. So we are very fortunate and delighted and honored to have you here today, sir.
Thank
As
you.
a speaker during this training program. So we have 47 participants in this training program.
Yes.
Can you hear? Hello.
Yes, I am listening.
Okay, sir. So yeah, we also should be able to listen to you, sir, because we are here to listen to you, sir. So with this, sir, I welcome you, and I will be apprising our training participants about your excellent career and so many positions you have held in the field of education. Friends, Dr. Girishwar Mishra, he is PhD and served as professor of psychology at the University of Delhi for nearly 2 decades. Now he is retired. He was also former vice chancellor of Mahatma Gandhi Rashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya, Wardha. His research is focused on social developmental, health, and cultural psychology. He has published journal articles on these topics, many in top-tier peer-reviewed journals such as American Psychologist, International Journal of Psychology, Psychology and Developing Societies, and International Journal of Behavioral Development. Sir has served as the president of the National Academy of Psychology, India, and edited the journal Psychological Studies for 16 years, published by Springer. He has Fulbright Senior Scholar. He was Fulbright Senior Scholar at Swarthmore College at Michigan University and Harvard. He is a recipient of the Jawaharlal Nehru National Award by the Government of Madhya Pradesh, National Fellowship of the Indian Council of Social Science Research, Fellowship of the NAOP India, Fulbright Nehru Fellowship, and SC Mitra Memorial Award by Asiatic Society. Sir's recent works include Psychosocial Interventions of Health and Well-Being by Springer 2018 and Surveys and Explorations in Psychology by Oxford in 2019. So we are very delighted and fortunate that you accepted our invitation, and I have heard from many people that you are a wonderful teacher, a very, very eminent speaker in the field of social sciences. Yesterday I met Jyoti Raina, and today I met another speaker, just she left, Sharmila Rathi. And both were your students, I heard. They all have interacted with you, sir, on these education sectors, sir. So we are very fortunate and delighted, sir. We welcome you, and now floor is yours, sir. Please.
Thank you. Namaste to everyone. I'm very happy to be present in the company of people who provide food, who look after this great country, in fact, the whole planet, who is, which is going to be, about 10 billion people. There is need to provide food. You need dairy products. You need vegetable. You need all kinds of nutrients. I'm very serious that the kind of job which you people are doing is one which is like a hub science. I would like to call it a hub science where you are connected with farming on one hand. On the other hand, you have to connect with market. You have to connect with production of knowledge as a faculty in agricultural institutions. You share a very complex challenge. I understand that by nature, agricultural science is multidisciplinary, where you get inputs from a variety of areas. You prepare students, agricultural scientists, who should have sympathy with farmers, who care people, who have attitudes, skills, expertise to serve humanity. And that requires a creative urge, that requires an attitude of tolerance, perseverance. The challenge is that the contemporary scenario is changing very fast. Technology has become an important agent in this process of social change. Learning, contributing to knowledge production, developing skills require a fair degree of understanding of the changing technology. So our job has become complex. At the same time, technology has helped in certain ways. Today's discussion is going to focus on effective classroom interaction. I'm afraid that I am not an expert in the area of agricultural science. Therefore, I'm not fit for providing the necessary knowledge which is required by a student or a scientist in the area of agricultural science. My own experience as a student and teacher, as head of the department, as vice chancellor, has been focused on the process of teaching. You may use the word pedagogy. So if I am not able to provide you the necessary knowledge which is relevant to agriculture science, please forgive me. I'm going to focus in the next few minutes on effective classroom interaction. Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I hope that learning is a process which contributes to acquisition of new information, new ways of thinking, new pieces of information. And after learning, you are a changed person. And the goal of a teacher or instructor is to help you in this process. I'm saying this simply because at times we emphasize teacher in information too much, and we forget that students are also human beings, and classroom activity is a human activity. And I am using the word human, I want to emphasize the relational part. You need to take that into account seriously. It's a human relational activity where there is interaction. It's a two-way traffic. I am speaking and you are a listener. You are listening. You try to learn something, retain something. Now, this learning and retention will be possible only when you are motivated, when you have interest in the task. I don't know how motivated and interested you are today at 5 o'clock. आप लोग मन लग रहा है? Are you listening carefully?
Yes, we are.
Right. It has been a long day for you. And I'm sure it is not easy to sustain interest after listening to so many speakers. So the job of a teacher is to create interest, motivation in the students. Now, how this can be done? And it's a human activity. It's an interactive activity. It's a relational activity. And teachers and students both come with certain kinds of attitudes. Their appearance becomes very important. The manners become very important. As a matter of fact, you are present as a person and you are supposed to be an expert. The role of teacher is remembered in so many ways in various poems, and in everyday life we often consider that Guru is God. Guru Devo Bhav. That is one of the key instructions given in free of address. And Guru is supposed to nurture talent, provide information, take care of all the problems of students. Now we don't have Gurukul. Our institutions have become very formal, but still the image of Guru or teacher is maintained in society. And students expect a kind of moral concern, a kind of commitment to teaching, a kind of attitude which is always ready to help the student. So it's not only provider of information, it deals with cognitive, behavioral, and emotional aspects of life. knowledge, information, they deal with the cognitive component. The emotional component deals with your commitment, motivation, interest, perseverance. And behavioral component deals with how you take interest in activities inside the classroom and outside the classroom. In particular, when we think about agricultural science, the students are required to interact with farmers, have to do so many things in connection with environment, with plants, with animals, with laboratory. You have to take care of, you have to prepare yourself for different domains, and a teacher is supposed to facilitate this process. Let me make it clear that the contemporary pedagogical concerns emphasize that learning in classroom is a process involving co-construction. Both the teacher and student are co-travelers. They go together and they perform the job of knowledge construction. Now, this knowledge construction takes place, learning, developing skills, developing expertise, requires a careful planning on the part of teacher. A teacher is required to help students, and that help comes in so many ways. It is very important, and perhaps most important aspect of pedagogy, that the teacher should be a good communicator. And a good communicator is one who is able to make understanding, appreciation of the ideas, themes which are being introduced. Meaning should reach to the listener. Now, meaning should reach to the listener. This occurs in a classroom context. I don't have time to go into the details of the entire classroom interaction, but I must tell that in offline classes, where teacher is present in the classroom, how teacher is presenting himself or herself becomes a key factor. The manners, postures, the language which is used, the tone, the voice, modulation, all these factors become very important. The pause, how you connect different ideas, that becomes very critical for developing interest in learning. I think teachers' job is to create interest in learning. I would also like to mention that one of the important features as a communicator is that you also teach meta communication. Communication about communication. Students learn how to communicate, how to present ideas, how to help the listener to understand. So, communication becomes the most important feature of classroom interaction. Now, when you provide some information, you describe a theory, you help students to learn something new. Now, there is another important aspect, and I think that should be very, very crucial and that should be emphasized, that there should be an attitude of active listening, that you listen and the teacher has to ensure there is active listening. So you can check that with the students. You can ask questions. You can give problems. You can engage them in different activities. Actually, the whole problem is student engagement. How intense this engagement is. And this engagement has at least two major components. One is academic component and the other component is social component. You have to gain cooperation of students. You have to create an atmosphere where there is trust, where there is sharing across the students and between teachers and students. Now, the goal of a teacher is to optimize student investment in learning process, to optimize the opportunity of learning, and that requires combination of a variety of activities. I have read somewhere that if you read, you remember 10 to 20%. If you write, it increases. If you speak that, it further increases. If you are able to do that, ultimately, then it becomes about 90% learning. So you have to create opportunity to engage students in all these activities: reading, writing, listening, speaking, reproducing, and also contributing to some activity based on that knowledge. So you go and conduct an experiment and see what is the effect of doing some kind of activity. So if you do this, then this happens. You check it, and then you really learn. So my point is that learning has to be supported in a variety of ways. You need to use PPT, you need to speak, you need to ask questions, you need to engage. Whether students are active listeners or not, that has to be ensured. If they are passive listeners, they are not attending, they are not present with their mind, they are present with body only. In that case, learning will be minimized. So, multimodality involvement is one very critical feature of learning in the classroom, and students' role is very important. I will just share one interesting thing, how teachers' presence can make a difference. Suppose you come and you sit, you take attendance or you talk and you are standing at one place. And if you leave that central place in front of the class, and you move around the class, if you go to other lines, this will change the whole atmosphere. The student engagement will change. They will feel more connected. They will feel more participating in terms of, classroom interaction. So, how class is organized, communication, and then I mentioned about listening, active listening, and then I mentioned that there should be an emphasis on the use of multimodality in the classroom situation. Now, teachers need to adopt certain kinds of attitudes. And I think that is essential because it's a human activity, it's interactive activity. To me, a good classroom will require warmth and enthusiasm on the part of a teacher. A teacher comes, interacts, and if there is warmth, if there is enthusiasm, the students will be more attracted towards the class, the lecture, the discussion. So warmth and enthusiasm is something which maintains motivation, which creates opportunity to engage. I have found in some of my classes that the students, they sit for 2 hours. They are very happy. How they connect, that becomes very critical. Of course, classes are organized in so many ways. I will just share one interesting way of doing class. In one of my assignments, I had to teach a course at New School of Social Research in New York. And there the pattern was that 2 of us, one professor from that university and myself, we had created that in each week what has to be done. What article or book chapter is the focus. And all that material was given to students before the class. It's with them. Everybody has that. Now, on Saturday, each student was expected to read that material, that chapter, or see that film, and send discussion questions to us. And the class was held on Tuesday evening for about 3 hours. And that class was nothing but discussion of all those questions. We were there to facilitate the discussion. The students have the material, they have read that, they have curiosities, they have shared that. We have that curiosities. Some questions were common, some were different, some were useless, some were important. So we selected the important questions. And those questions were discussed in the class. That's the class. So how interaction can be created, how opportunity to interact can be created, it's up to you how you do that. And before coming to class, they had to read that and they had to send the questions. And the classroom is an opportunity to clear those doubts. Our job was to elaborate, to provide information, to solve the problems which they have raised in the questions. So everybody is engaged in the class. And they have to put in some effort. So you have to create your class in such a way that it provides an opportunity to make effort on the part of students, to use that opportunity to reflect. Reflection means thinking. And a good teacher provides opportunity for reflection. A reflective thinker, teacher is much more effective in the process of teaching. Now, there is a very important statement in communication, which talks about several C's. C's means words with C. It's an interesting list. Your communication should be clear. It should be concrete. It should be coherent. It should be complete. And it should be compassionate or considerate. Clear, concrete, compassionate, coherent, complete. And if you are able to do this, if your communication has these qualities, if you aspire to be clear, concise, complete, considerate, you are able to achieve the goal of transforming students, leading them towards knowledge. There is another important feature of effective classroom interaction, and that should be used frequently. Please remember it, that you should create pairs or small groups and provide some kind of group activity. Each group has to take up one piece of the puzzle, one problem, and they have to work. So if you distribute, rather than giving one problem and the entire class does that, there will be copying and all kinds of problems. You can ask them to take it up differently. You can create different related problems. So group activity or teamwork is very, very important. It has several kinds of consequences. Number one, it will allow greater participation. Number two, it will increase enthusiasm. And it will also provide opportunity to use insight. So every group has its own problem. There will be good, healthy academic competition. And every group has opportunity to learn and to work with certain ideas which are useful. So participation and engagement can be increased substantially if group work or teamwork is introduced as a strategy. I would also like to emphasize that effective classroom interaction has one more feature, and that is, please remember it, if students are required to show active listening, a teacher has to provide feedback. Classroom interaction should be such that there is a provision of feedback. And feedback is very, very important. It is important for motivation, but it has to be handled carefully. Feedback must tell how one can improve. And it has to be, please remember it, students are eager to know that they are doing good. It has to be positive. It is very, very crucial. If it is negative, it will not help. Learning will not be possible if there is negative feedback. So how feedback is structured? It is teachers, instructors' responsibility. So it is crucial that you must provide feedback. You must tell how they have learned. And everybody wants to listen good things about himself or herself. So feedback should be given. Active listening should be there. Your non-verbal communication, which is called body language, is also very important. How you are looking at the students, how you are interacting with the students, all that is going to play a key role because it's a human interactive relational activity. So in that process, it is crucial that you provide feedback, you ensure that there is active listening. I also bring here another important point. Of course, that depends on the infrastructure and availability of resources, but the classroom should be comfortable, should be safe, and should be structured in such a way that it creates enthusiasm. For example, I see that today's lecture is being organized in a room which is good in the sense that it's not, usual classroom. It's a meeting room. It is circular in shape, and people are sitting according to that arrangement. So it's very important that how a classroom is arranged. It's not an authoritarian structure. It should not be like that. It is also very crucial to combine oral or verbal instruction with necessary gadgets which are now available. A simple one is using PowerPoint presentation, or you can have certain clips, certain videos which can be shown. So you provide visual as well as auditory experience to students. As I had mentioned, that single modality interaction is not so effective as multimodality instruction. So that will help students to learn more effectively. There is another important feature which brings in the question of assessment. It's part of learning process. We find that assessment or examination or evaluation has become a problem that creates stress, that creates anxiety. And we often find there are problems with the students during examination days. As a good teacher, you need to create opportunity to learn, and assessment should be the part of learning. It is not an evaluation, it is an opportunity to learn. In the new education policy, there is emphasis on continuous and formative kind of assessment. Assessment is needed. You need to know what you know. You need to make corrections if you are not right. You need to learn what you have missed. Simply providing marks does not mean anything. It is very important that the assessment should be made part of learning process, and each and every student has this opportunity to learn through assessment. How it is done depends. It depends on so many things. I had mentioned you one class where the questions have to be written by students. They ask questions. So before the class, they are assessed in some way. They have given the questions and those questions are discussed in the class. And you know, after 13 weeks of class in that semester, in that class, they had to submit a research proposal. And that was the final assessment of those students. So how assessment can be improved so that assessment is not frightening. Assessment is not something anxiety provoking or stressful. Rather, you enjoy it. It's part of learning. How that can be done, it depends on the provisions of the institution, but I think there is possibility for that. We have noted that in the new scheme, the new education policy has proposed that the number of board examinations is being curtailed, so that threat will not be there and you are always learning. In case of teachers, there is one very important component, and particularly in agriculture science, that how a teacher spends time. Time is very precious. And each student wants time. Each student wants attention. Each student wants that his ego, his self is respected. And it's a tough job. And a teacher is not supposed to favor some students. I think it's another question. The question of justice will come. And you should not discriminate. You should allow all the students in the classroom. Only then students will be ready to learn. Only then students will be investing their time, energy, resources as far as learning is concerned. So it is crucial that you encourage students to interact. You can provide feedback in small groups, but that is very important. You should not miss as a faculty, and you should create opportunities for interaction with students. It is a must. I would also like to emphasize one more thing, that effective classroom interaction aspires to create a feeling of belongingness. You belong to the institution, you belong to that class, you belong to that community. So, emphasis on connection, on links, on relationships should be there. This has to be looked at, how opportunities are created to realize this goal where the relationship is emphasized. Connection is emphasized and a feeling of belongingness is created. Only then an atmosphere of cooperation will be created and there will be mutual understanding. This is very important. Students should understand the teacher and teacher should understand the students which are in the classroom. If you are able to recognize students, if you are able to show that you know the name of students, that pays a lot. So this is not an academic or cognitive kind of thing, but a teacher is required, is expected to pay attention to this aspect of interaction. I mean, you meet a student and you simply ask, how are you doing? Simply this comment, some compliment, just looking in the direction, all these things play very important role. It's a human relational interactive setup where teachers and students act together. Teacher is not an authority and student is not just a follower. You also need to create opportunity in students. You know, sorry, I wanted to say something else. Opportunity for students, how they can take leadership role, how they can write, present, participate in different activities. So as a teacher, you need to facilitate. You need to create different kinds of opportunities where they learn that sympathy is important, cooperation is important. It's not merely mugging up, remembering a few things. That is not enough. You need to be a good human being. And you need to develop these various properties. I also want to bring here a contextual component, particularly in the context of, the community to which you have greater concern, towards which you have to develop an attitude of respect, and that is farmers. How you view farming, how you view farmers, and how you connect with them. So we need to create opportunity for that also. Obviously, classroom, the idea of classroom in agricultural science is not limited to mere simple classroom. It is wider. It goes to community. It goes to fields. It goes to plants. It goes to animals. It's very broad. You need to have an attitude where there is a scope to include all these. It's very critical. You are not dealing with machines only. You need to realize that your classroom is real life. You have to deal with community, you have to deal with market, you need to develop competence of various kinds. So your classroom is very broad. You learn things in all these situations. You need to go to fields, you need to understand the crops. You need to see the impact of climate, how seasons are related to farming. You need to understand the irrigation system. So my simple request is that the idea of classroom in agricultural science is not the same as we find in other areas. It is broader. Maybe you need to understand the local language. The terms which are used for various crops in the local language will be very important. What are the local methods of farming? Today, there is a lot of discussion about organic food and that discussion and that is going on. How to save the local varieties. So we need to remember that the cultural tradition, the various kinds of festivals, which provide a context for life, they are also equally important. Your knowledge will be applied in real life context. So how to communicate, how to negotiate, how to resolve the conflict, all that is also part of communication process. And maybe in your course on social science, sociology, or psychology, these topics must be there. One should understand the group dynamics. As a competent agricultural scientist, you need to understand all that. I have tried to offer a very broad outline of aspects of classroom interaction, how communication can be made more effective, the tools which are available. One thing which comes to my mind is that questioning is very critical. A teacher is required to ask questions at different points. And with question, you get feedback, whether students are learning, developing the skills, or whether they develop a perspective on the problems. All that is possible by creating different opportunities for interaction, and questioning is one important feature. So active collaborative learning has to be introduced, and a combination of social and academic ways of learning should be emphasized. Only then you will develop the necessary competencies. Finally, I would like to point out that human beings are very different. They are different in their interest, personality, attitude, Not only that, each student has a different learning style. How they remember, how they learn better. I'm posing this as a problem and as a solution also. It is a problem because you want one way and students have diverse ways of learning. Students also come from diverse backgrounds. Now, those diversities in terms of their attitude, their social background, their expectations, I would like to just point out that some students have a goal to perform well in examination, right? Getting good marks is the goal. There are other students whose goal is to develop competence and expertise. They want to learn. So whether goal is learning or whether goal is performance, that makes a difference in the approach and the investment on the part of students. So outcomes of learning will be different for different students. The learning styles are quite varied. They come with certain expectations. Why they are there in the institution, with which intention, with which goal, that is going to influence how much time, how much energy is devoted to learning, interacting, and developing competence. There is no limit to learning. There is no limit to knowledge. It's an ongoing process. And learning is something which is called an experience which liberates. Sa vidya ya vimuktaye, it is mentioned, that it liberates. So, an effective classroom interaction, an interaction between students and faculty is going to ensure learning on the part of student, and learning is also shared by the teacher. It's a co-construction. It is something which is shared between the two. I will stop here and for the next few minutes, hope that you will raise some questions. I expect some comments from you. If you have any curiosity, I will try to address that so that this communication becomes a two-way communication. I thank NAAS for organizing this interaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for a very enlightening lecture. So now we can have some queries or questions from the participants. Yes.
So thank you very much, sir, for giving so much insights how we can interact with students and teach. I have questions, sir. If suppose some of the topics they are not really very interesting, and if students they are not interested in the topic and they are not showing much interest, so how we can, I mean, make the topic interesting so that they are involved in the teaching process and learning process.
Good. Uh, the answer will depend, the answer will depend on the specific situation. For example, you may create a game. You can use quiz. You can create another kind of opportunity and make the class interesting. This is one solution. So you can create alternative ways of learning. There are some students who have their personal problems and that's why they are not interested. Perhaps they need counseling. You need to have individual session with them and ask them, Baba, what problem you have? What are your difficulties? And try to address those problems, and then you can get their cooperation in the classroom. That comes to my mind. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Any other query? Or any other question? Yes, Dr. Pratibha.
Yes, sir.
The voice is not clear.
The other mic is not working, sir. Now is it clear? Is it audible, sir?
Slightly better.
Thank you, sir. The question I wanted to ask is that, sir, the new teachers, the upcoming generation of the teachers, now they have two different kinds of options. One is that they use technology and develop modules for teaching. And the other is that they spend time like your generation, where they went into the deep cultivation of the knowledge so that it becomes inherent part of the personality. So that way, like you are speaking extempore without looking into the notes. But then now the newer generation of the teachers, they will always be dependent on several technologies. So which one do you think is going to persist for long?
Let me make it clear that technology can be used to supplement, to make your class more effective. I did not use a PowerPoint. I did not have time, actually. The points that I have made, if they are shown with the help of PPT, perhaps you have more solid material with you. So learning and remembering and understanding will be more effective. My suggestion will be that you need to meaningfully combine your lecture with technological inputs. I don't think technology will replace teacher. The human touch, the interaction, the enthusiasm, the motivational component, the opportunity to become more creative. You can start class in different ways on different days. It is quite possible. Someday you start with an example. Someday you can take them to field. Someday you can ask them to do an experiment. Someday you can give a lecture. You need to organize, make the classroom more and more creative, functional, effective. So you have to take some time and see how it can be done. So let us give a space to technology, and remember that teacher still has to play an important role. And I think it will be good for humanity. Thank you.
Very nice. Any other clarification or question from any of other participants? Sir, we profusely thank you, sir. There are no more questions as I don't hear any participant raising hand. So it was very rightly said, so very elaborately, you have given us a lot of points, sir, for the teachers to take up in their classroom interaction teachings. And more important, the last you summarize that human touch is very important. So you totally cannot rely on the tools and the gadgets for taking any lecture in the class. The human touch directly touches the student's heart, and then you have better communication with the students. So that way, sir, we are so thankful to you, sir, for joining us online. All were very eager to listen to you, sir. So we heartfelt thankfulness to you, sir, for sparing your time. And we heard that in between you were not well also, but we are so happy and delighted, sir, to see you online and hear to you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of Academy, I profusely thank you, sir, for giving us so much of ideas and inputs for effective classroom teaching. So thank you, sir. We'll be in touch with you for our more future programs, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.